Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's another edition of Let's Talk Broncos. It's Joey Richards. We're back for another edition again. Yet, Zach, it feels like I'm just like in a cycle at this point with the Broncos. That's my issue. I feel like I come on here. Not only am I coming in here with this intro every single time, but I'm coming in here on Mondays getting ready to talk about the offensive downfalls yet again. Man, it's not beautiful. Before we hop into all of that, though, how are you feeling today? How's everything gone?
It's good. This is going to be a little lower quality show. I don't have my stuff together. I'm house sitting, pet sitting for my parents. But we'll have my microphone set up next episode. Also, Joey just recently celebrated a birthday. I got him a podcast related gift that'll be in here for before our next show. So our show budget or production value, I guess is probably the right way to put it. Our show production value is about to go through the roof from where it is right now with me in this basement and none of my technology set up to where it's going to be on Wednesday. I mean, wowzer. It's going to be Bo Nix third quarter to Bo Nix fourth quarter. It's going to be night and day.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, okay. I'm here for it. I'm excited to figure out what this gift is. I feel like I just got a big hint there. Something pod related. Zach's about to change like my entire living room, probably. Something like that. Like this next time you come in here, the walls are gonna be brick or something like that. I'm gonna be all Bree Macis edition on Let's Talk Broncos. I don't know what's gonna come.
You thought I was doing the one chip challenge. I got bad news.
Oh, and by the way, before we get, I need to bring this up. LTB Muse, he tweeted at me. He said we lost because I was there. I need everyone to know Zach had a much closer view of the game.
I did. But the problem, see, when I'm there and you're not, they win. They stomp the Raiders. They break a streak. They have their best win of the season. All of a sudden, you show up and it all goes south.
No, here's the issue: the closer we get Zach to the field, the worse it becomes. I'll tell you that right now. Zach was, for anyone's listening, Zach was on the field. He was on the field.
I was.
Where was like a motivational speech? You couldn't have given Bo Nix a pat on the back or something. Zach was out there probably.
I got Fraboni mad at me, man. I can't get Sean Payton and go mad at me too.
I mean, it's not looking good. I would start a strike to get Zach off the field, but I'm happy for the guy, so we're gonna allow it to happen for a little bit at least. But Zach, let's get into it. Obviously, that game didn't go the way we wanted. The offense continues to look not very great, and that's to be put lightly. Like, right, the offense looked terrible for 90% of that game, going all the way up until the fourth quarter. The offense looked really bad. At halftime, we're sitting there looking at Bo Nix having under 30 yards passing. The title of the show is "How Can the Denver Broncos Fix Their Offense?" And I'm just curious: is there a way in your mind? And I don't want to overreact to people. This is just an open-ended question. Zach can answer this however he wants, so the haters can get out of here. Is there a way that the Broncos can get this offense rolling in this season, or are we just out?
I think there is. I think the run game, there is something there. It took a step back against the Chargers. The numbers are good because Bo Nix had those scrambles that really fluff it up. If you look at just like the running back numbers in a vacuum, definitely their worst rushing performance in a good bit. I think they had something like 50 yards on 15 carries or something. They were below 4 yards per carry on the day after a handful of really good showings the past few weeks. That's concerning, but again, it was kind of to be expected against this elite run defense, especially down, two right tackles and a center. I think Forsyth might have been a little bit of an upgrade sneakily. We can get into that more in a second, but I think the offense if you lean on that run game, you can find a foundation. I think that's one. And I think you're seeing enough from Bo Nix that it shouldn't they shouldn't be having these long stretches of historical ineptitude. I think there's still some boxes to check as to whether or not this guy's a franchise quarterback, or there's a lot of questions to answer in regard to Bo Nix. But I do think we're seeing enough that, like, especially in these fourth quarters, when they're running no huddle stuff, that you should be able to make Bo Nix a little more functional than we're seeing for long stretches of this. And I think they can do that if one, I alluded to it a little. I think going into a little more up tempo looks, using those a little more frequently, would be helpful. There's only so much you can do about that, or so much you can lean into that, rather. I've seen some fans, after seeing, how good the no huddle stuff looked yesterday, like they just need to run no huddle all the time. And you can't really do that as an offense because it just pares down your menu so much. It's also just like the conditioning elements and whatnot, the time of possession elements. You can't just like make a whole offense out of that. You can lean further into it than the Broncos currently are, though. I think that would be good. Just kind of simplify the defensive looks that Bo Nix is seeing. And I also think, again, because we are seeing these good moments from Bo, the consistent element to me is it looks a lot better when he feels comfortable throwing the ball, which I guess is a little like overly simplistic, but like when he just like is either one settled in because he's been playing a half of football, or just feels like, well, screw it, I can't be overthinking this stuff because we're down 3 touchdowns and I just have to be slinging the thing, to it's no huddle late in the end of half situation, and he's thinking less, whatever it is. I feel in those situations when he's more confident in what he's seen, or he's just in a spot where he's less prone to overthinking it. The Bucs first half, like that's the only good first half he had. He opens the game with 2 great throws. And I wonder if that had him feeling a little more confident about what he was seeing and what he was thinking. I'm totally hypothesizing here, but I wonder if just giving him more reps throughout the season, if you can make that be a constant. I cited the stat a week or two ago. If you look at the second half, he's a middle of the road quarterback in terms of like EPA per play, CPOE, all that stuff. The first half, he's far and away the worst quarterback in the league.
Yeah. I mean, the drastic difference there has been obvious. And I think a lot of fans even had the one where it was about play calling, right? And this is something that I've seen a ton in Broncos country, is just like the conservative play calling. To me, honestly, victory lap, and to other people saying this, because it's a lot. And I think it makes sense, because when you start to see the offense 2 years in a row start to look so much better when they're in that 2-minute drill type situation rather than they're in their actual game script and stuff like that. So I totally understand why everyone's saying that. I totally do. It's in this Bo Nix circumstance, I do just feel like he is playing defense a little, or he's playing offense a little different than when he isn't out there. I don't see this massive change in how the offense is ran. I don't think you can consistently do this. The way I did this last year, and I said it last year, was like, could you imagine finding success with running 3 tight ends in my goal line set and being like, we need to run a bunch more 3 tight ends in my goal line set? Like, it just wouldn't make sense. Like, it's there for a reason and for a circumstance. I don't think you can run that through an entire game. No. To me, a lot of this is just Bo Nix's inability to figure it out at the beginning of games right now. It doesn't look like he's pushing down the ball down the field. And I've watched the film to this point. And also I was there at the game, so I got a really great view of just watching these routes develop. Shout out to Bree for allowing me to go to the game with her. But yeah, I don't think that he was pushing the ball great. And then when he was inaccurate. A lot of that is with his feet and different issues like that. Anyways, that was a big tangent. I want to go on if I think the Broncos. Oh, go ahead, Zach.
Sorry, just on the conservative play calling point. I know I've been talking a lot, so I'll be quick. But I don't think it's that conservative. I don't think that's the difference between what we're seeing in the first half or the second half. There's deep shots being called. To me, I see Bo Nix being really hesitant to fire anything downfield. I don't see it being a play calling thing. I think the shots are there first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. I think you can knock Sean Payton for how many of these shot plays he's drawing up are like max protects with like 2 or 3 routes on the field for Nix to work with. That's not what they should be doing with their collection of receivers, or just in 2024 in general. It's a little dated. There's fair knocks to be had in terms of I don't know, the verticality of this passing game. It being like super conservative play calling in the first half just like isn't it, in my opinion. And even if we were to cede that point and say, okay, the Peyton's a conservative play caller on balance in the passing game, and that's what it is. He's regularly through the first half, through the first 3 quarters, averaging like sub 3 yards per attempt. That's not, there's conservative play callers all throughout the league, right? If we were going to put it on a scale, it's got to be some sort of gradient. Every year there's a guy who's the most conservative play caller in the league, right? And every year there's a bunch of rookie quarterbacks. And every year there's like a lack of talent around, or offenses with a lack of talent around. And yet 3 yards per attempt this consistently is, or sub 3 yards per attempt, I should say, is an extreme rarity. So it's not just, oh, the play calling's conservative. Oh, the receivers are dropping passes or whatever. The quarterback's a big part of it. Yeah, those are part of it. I'm not trying to say those aren't part of it. Coaching's part of it. Absolutely. Protection's part of it. Absolutely. Receiver play's part of it. Absolutely. Quarterback, in my opinion, is the biggest individual part of it.
Yeah. Okay. The biggest.
And that's okay. He's a rookie. I'll also say that rookie through 6 games. Fine. It's okay. This is normal. The Texans were 16th in the NFL last year in offensive DVOA, and that was a historically great season from their rookie quarterback on like a rookie scale. Maybe the best rookie season from a quarterback we've ever seen. It's fine to have an offense that's limited because you have a rookie quarterback. That's okay. It's also the reality the Broncos are in currently, in my opinion, and other things are going awry as well. I own that.
So I do have to say, Zach, I think the biggest might be a little bit of a stretch. I think it's right there, if not right, like immediately, like the main thing. I just also think that if you were to put Bo Nix in an offense where he was just throwing to open receivers all day, it would be substantially different. So I don't want to just be like, hey, he is the issue or the biggest issue or anything like that. Only because it's like he is an issue. And that when I say that, I mean, he's playing bad. He's not playing great. And if he's not throwing to literally an open wide receiver, unless it's a fade ball up the sidelines, it doesn't feel like it's a very great ball. He's not, it doesn't feel like that. But I kind of just see what like Jared Goff and them are doing down there in a very similar offense, just with the shit ton more talent. in Detroit, and he's throwing to a lot of just like butt naked, wide open, wide receivers out there, like because they're able to run the ball so efficiently and everything like that. It just takes it's just kind of unrealistic saying that because it's hard to build a team that way, especially when you are a first round pick quarterback and you're wanting to start right away. That usually means your team's not that great.
And that's definitely true, but also Goff is able to make those concepts so potent because he's hitting them super consistently. Like Nix is, I believe, by CPOE, the least accurate quarterback in the league so far this season. He's definitely in the bottom 3, which again we did not expect from him coming out. And it can improve. None of this is put in burying Bo Nix. It's just an acknowledgement of, I think, where it is right now. And I'm not saying that to you, Joey, but just the audience. He is missing open receivers badly with like a good bit of regularity, or just missing throws. Like it, and it's not always wide open guys, but NFL open guys. And he's just sailing them. Because in part, I think the biggest concern with him right now is he's feeling ghosts in the pocket. And there's times when I don't think the pressure is really there, or there's, a hint of pressure, and he's very quick to start drifting in the pocket. Frankly, there's a lot of reps where he's drifting in the pocket and there's not even a hint of pressure. And because of that drift, because of that willingness to get off his platform, he's suddenly making these easy open throws more difficult, and we're having these inaccuracy spikes. Also, because his feet aren't set at times, or he's too willing to put himself into this position where he's not on a stable throwing platform. I think you're seeing times when receivers do flash open, a window does come open downfield, and this is the time in the concept when you got to hit it, and his feet aren't set, so he's not able to take advantage of it. He's not able to pull the trigger then, and then the route gets covered up. And I fully agree with what you're saying. If you put him in the Lions offense, I think it does look better. I don't think it looks as good as Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels. And Jared Goff's a great example of this. A quarterback's rookie season is not necessarily going to be their career. Yeah. But right now, like, there's some real problems, some real concerns in this game. Peyton needs to be doing more to help him. We've seen a lot of positives, I think, as well, that I do think you can build something out of. But yeah, they've got to coach. I think some of these bad habits out of him, mainly the footwork thing. I think that's the one thing that's really concerning me right
so you want to, if I were to tell you why, Zach, here's my big issue. And I think that footwork is because of this in a lot of ways. To me, it looks like everything is very rushed. Like, his internal clock in my mind, Zach, is running too fast. A lot of times it runs too slow for these quarterbacks. His internal clock is running way too fast. Instead of going 1 to 2 to 3, it's 1, 2, 3. It's like it's bop, and it's not actually giving the opportunity for the play to develop. He's not actually giving the play a chance, because when you do this, all these plays are designed to happen in a certain time frame, and he's rushing it so far past his first read, which is causing, hey, I need to go make a play right now. And that's an area where I think we can give Bo Nix a shout out. Is, man, this is something that I was saying before it, and I still stand on it despite how it's looked so far. The issue with Bo Nix was never, hey, he doesn't have enough tools. If anything, the tools are the reason why he's even able to make these plays happen so far in his career.
Yeah,
like that was my big thing from the beginning, was like everyone was making him sound like he was like Joe Flacco or some shit. Like, he just had the weakest arm ever. He is going to have to just be in the pocket and make every decision perfect for him to have a successful NFL career. We can throw that out the window. That's not true. That is not true. How many plays have we seen him in scramble drill playmaking mode? That's the best part of his game right now in the NFL, and he's been good at it. So I thought I'd just throw that out there too. I think we can kind of dispel this ceiling is extremely low thing because he doesn't have the tools to make it work. He's going. Yeah. It's honestly the part that we thought he had is the issue. It's the processing and getting through plays fast enough and all of this type of stuff.
Yeah, I think Derek Carr is a solid comp for him. I forget, I was hearing someone talk about that recently. I forget if it was Ryan Edwards or Ben Albright talking about that comp for him in the pre-draft process. And the more I think about it, the more I like it. Just obviously a much more mobile version of him. And the mobility we saw today is, or not today, yesterday rather, I think is
every game, honestly,
every game, but yesterday was the peak of it, what he was doing in the backfield and whatnot. I think is really exciting. It's also, to me, you can't build the offense out of that. It's not a foundational element. And it's exactly what you're saying. It limits how concerned I am about the ceiling. Right now, I am, and it's not just because bigger worries have cropped up, but right now I'm much less worried about Bo Nix's ceiling. What do you like if the stars align and things start developing? I'm much less worried about where he might max out now than I was during training camp, even during the preseason, and especially during the NFL draft. I'm feeling a lot better on those fronts. The floor, I think we're feeling a good bit worse on, and that's okay. Again, I just, it's nuanced. And that's the thing that I'm just frustrated with right now. There's good things with Bo Nix's game. There's plenty of bad things with Bo Nix's game. There's good things with the offense. There's bad things with the offense around him. And I wish we could just, it's a lot of gray, and it's not one thing. It's not like, oh, it's Sean Payton. Oh, it's the weapons. It's all of it. And there's nuggets of good in all of it. It's not that all of it's bad or all it's, that's my little rant. And it's not a hot take. It's very middle of the road, but I think that's where Broncos country should be existing right now. Outside of like the pass defense, I think everything is a mixed bag across the board.
Fair enough. Well, we have a super chat. Shout out to you, Mr. Rocket. We see you in here all the time, so appreciate you for sure. He says, so I've not been impressed by Bo Nix and honestly feel like he hasn't progressed, but how much does the offensive failure fall on the lack of playmaking or playmakers? Yeah, I think this brings us, Zach, right into our good, bad, and ugly a little bit.
Up and down.
Ups and downs, stocks up, stocks down. Yeah, I mean, the playmakers just have simply not been good. For how bad I want to just say Bo Nix has been really, really bad, these other guys have been really, really pretty bad. Outside of Courtland Sutton, who's come down with some big-time catches for this team this year, who are you looking at this wide receiver room and being like, this is a winning player? Like, even if with a great quarterback, do I, at this point, in Marvin Mims' career with the way he's looked right now through the season. And it really did feel like the Broncos put a very big effort into trying to get him involved this last week. If I even put him in Kansas City, do I think he's amazing? Do I think he's just all of a sudden a lot better? Is he producing to the level I want him to? Like, I could go down the line here with all of these players, and I just don't think the Broncos have very good players. That there is playmaking. Like, they're not helping Bo Nix whatsoever. I think that can be said.
Yeah, I think that definitely could be said. I also think, I think the bears of it all is kind of like clouding people's, I don't know, perception of this whole thing. The roster is talent poor. I've been banging that drum a lot. It's going to cap how far this team can go this year. Even next year, there'll be effects of it. This is going to be the worst of it. But there's some real problems. People were responding to me on Twitter saying, well, I think the Browns might be a little more handcuffed from a team building standpoint than the Broncos. Down the road, they will be. In this current moment, the Deshaun Watson thing hasn't really hit them yet because they've just kicked that down the road financially. The Broncos ate their medicine. They took it pretty quick. The Browns have kicked it down the road, and so they've been able to kind of assemble this roster around the guy. And it's all going south now, but the Broncos probably have, or not even probably, they definitely have had the least amount of resources to invest into this roster. And you look at how strong the defense is on the defensive front, at edge, at cornerback. Maybe now the depth is in question, but that's going to lead to some real problems on offense when you are this handicapped in terms of team building. Nonetheless, if we're talking about like what the biggest problems on this offense are, to me, I would say number one, it's the quarterback play. And that's not this is a forever problem, but like, why is the offense what it is right now? I'd say number one is quarterback play. Number two is the offensive infrastructure, the scheming of it all. I don't think they're doing their best job of playing to Nix's strengths. I think it is a little forcing him into this Peyton offense when they could be doing more to help him. Three, I'd say playmakers, and four, I'd say the line.
Okay, I disagree with you.
Interesting. How would you rank those four pieces?
I would definitely go Nix and all of the rest of the offense neck and neck. Like this it doesn't make Nix better, the better offensive players, but it would make him look substantially better. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. Zach, here's my thing with it, right? I'll just say this. There's not a single player on the skilled positions outside of Courtland Sutton that I don't want to replace. Just
Okay, Washington's number 2 receiver is Olamide Zaccheaus, and their number 3 is Noah Brown, who got cut in September. I mean,
we all know Noah Brown's better than just being cut, though. Like, we got to be serious about the situation. Noah Brown had a good season last year
as like a number 4, number 5 receiver, and he did, playing with a really good quarterback. But look at that Washington receiver core. I mean, Luke McCaffrey, who's like a mid-third round pick, is getting tons of snaps for them for a reason. They don't have really anyone else to turn to. And for as good as Noah Brown is, he's not even their number 2. He's their number 3 behind Olamide Zaccheaus. And Terry McLaurin's the Cortland Sutton in that room. They don't have a lot there. Austin Eckler is a key element of their weapons.
Miami Browns played pretty good this year. Like, they've been okay in some areas. Like, and then here's the thing. I'm not saying, Zach, that Jaden Daniels isn't substantially better than Bo Nix. And that's the argument that you're kind of giving me right now, is that I'm like saying that they're neck and neck. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying we can't pretend and we can't consistently say, and every football player would tell you, that it's the ultimate 11-on-11 game. It's the ultimate team sport. And then all of a sudden be like, yeah, but those wide receivers, tight ends, and all that don't really matter. We can't say that. But the Jaden Daniels argument is telling me that if all those other players are bad, yet they have one of the best passing offenses in the NFL all of a sudden, you are telling me that it is not that great of a team sport on offense. It really just is the quarterback. That's what that argument would be.
I don't think they're all bad. I think, and I implore our listeners, look at that offensive roster. It's a very limited offensive roster. Like, their best offensive linemen were backups on the Cowboys. Like, I just and they're doing a good job with it. They're coaching it up. And that's a reason to critique Sean Payton. I don't think he's getting the most out of these surrounding pieces of offensive talent. But I don't think the gaps there that big. And I would say, I think the quarterbacking is holding this offense back more than the pass catchers, because although I agree, if you gave him an elite cast of weapons, this offense would be, considerably better. I think if you gave them an elite quarterback, it would be better than that offense with the elite weapons upgrade. I think there are more reps. And that's not just because of the value of the position. I think there are more reps that are being burned or wasted by a quarterbacking mistake. And again, this is a rookie in his 6th start, or only 6 starts into his career. It's understandable. But I think there a higher percentage of the blown plays are a product of Bo Nix than of the weapons. I feel pretty comfortable in that.
Fair. I just, the only thing that I'm saying here is that, like, I totally agree. Jaden Daniels is substantially better than Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix is right now a net negative to your team. You're just looking for any type of player on this team that is lifting the bar up or making a play, making your quarterback right on anything. And let's just be real. Like, I love Cortland Sutton, and he's a good wide receiver in the NFL. That being your best offensive player that you can either hand the ball off or throw the ball to,
far and away,
not good. And then we start working our way down the roster, whereas Cortland Sutton might be like a C-level wide receiver 1. I start looking at my wide receiver 2. I'm starting looking at my wide receiver 3, looking at my running back. I'm giving all of these guys D's and F's on what, like, I'm just being honest. All of these guys are D, F, D, F. And then along with that, like, we got to be honest about the Quinn Miners situation too. Like, he hasn't looked like Quinn Miners this season. There has not been a player on this offensive side of the ball. And even in years in the past, I've been putting, like, Quinn Miners has been like a B+ level player. So I'm not just saying it because it's production of the offense. I'm saying it because, man, has this offense just looked really bad just generally. It would be nice to see some sort of player make a play for the quarterback. This is who said this? This was really good. D-Bronx. It's a team sport, and Jaden is elevating his teammates. Bo is bringing us down. This is a perfect way of saying it. Yeah. Jaden's just playing really, really good, whereas Bo is playing not good. And then you're just seeing the difference in, hey, these guys aren't lifting Bo Nix up at all. whereas Jaden's guys, Jaden's lifting them up substantially. We got to move on from this, though, Zach. We're already 30 minutes into the
we really are. I
Um,
will just say just because I don't want it to be like so down and negative on Bo, I do think there's reasons for optimism. This is a down week. You know, we were coming on here after the Raiders game, you know, feeling a lot more optimistic. We came on after the Jets game, we were concerned. Came on after the Bucks game, we were feeling more optimistic. I think it's part of the rookie process, but you know, when you compare him to the other rookies, and it's not just Jaden Daniels who's having a phenomenally great year, but even Caleb Williams, who we're having seen more of those rookie warts and ups and downs. I think it's, you know, you can say, hey, it's not over for Bo, but also right now these other rookies are, you know, a good bit ahead of him, and hopefully Bo can catch up.
Yeah. So let's work up into the ups then, Zach. Let's do that. Let's work it into more of a positive light here. What do you have for a stock up in this game?
Yeah, for me, stock up. I'm going to go against a little what you were saying here. I'll go, or never mind. I dang near stole yours. I'm going to go with Alex Forsythe here. I'll go Alex Forsythe. He's helping the supporting cast a little bit. You know, Luke Wattenberg just hasn't been it at center. I think your point about Quinn Miners is fair. The offensive line in general, I think, has maybe taken a bit of a step back this year. But Wattenberg has been the weak link of that group, and by a comfortable margin. It's been a constant thing in our group chat with Frankie. He's in the chat right now. Frankie and Pat have been incredibly frustrated with Luke Wattenberg all season, and with good reason. And Forsythe, I thought, offered a little something in there at center. And, you know, at this point, why not give that some more looks? You know, this team is in a spot where they should be really combing for young talent. And Forsythe looks like he could be a piece there. I'm going to be honest. I'm reaching on my ups here. I thought this was a really disappointing game, but Forsythe maybe being something at center is a nice development for this team. And I hope we get a better read on it, you know, through the upcoming weeks here. But this was a good test for him. The Chargers front has been playing like one of the best fronts in the league. You know, you see that with their pass defense numbers, with their run defense numbers, and Forsythe more than held his own.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I don't know if I saw like a substantial upgrade from Forsythe from Wattenberg. I thought.
Well, I'm reaching, admittedly.
Fair enough. It's just hard to find a ton of ups here. It really is. Like, I thought he was okay for his first career start. You know what I mean? And if you're trying to get more reps there for him, I think that's absolutely fine. I mean, it didn't look like a substantial downgrade to me either for Forsythe. It was just a lot of the very same there at center for me. But yeah, I mean, it was his first career start. If they continue to get him more reps, maybe he looks better. Like, it is like the same way we want to see progression with Bo Nix throughout the season. And we're saying, hey, it's too early to it's too early to just call your shot there and say he's going to be amazing or bad or whatever the case may be. I could say the same thing about Forsythe and some of these other guys getting their starts early in their career and everything like that. My stock up, I'm going Devon Villay. He's been a really fun player there for the Broncos. Obviously hurt for a little bit, came back, I think, this last week, but he was a healthy and active, if I'm not mistaken there. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. But when he was in week one, he looked awesome too. Devon Villay continues to impress me. I think he just looks like one of the more athletic players on this team, one. And then two, he also looks pretty good after the catch, and he's providing there too. Being a big wide receiver, I think that's a really great thing the Broncos needed. Zach and I just argued this whole point, and I was yelling into the camera talking about these Broncos wide receivers are not doing enough. There's very few plays a game where they're making the quarterback right. It's a good sign that they have a rookie in there. I don't care if he's 35 or whatever he is. It's a rookie. I'm counting it. In there making a play and looking like one of the better wide receivers on the team automatically. And I don't think his snap should go down at all. If anything, he's probably going to work his way into a more consistent role for the Broncos going forward. He deserves it.
Yeah, I fully agree. You outlined it well in our last hunk of conversation. This team needs to be finding weapons weapons to help this offense. And I think they'll be able to do a good bit of that next offseason. But that's that's not going to help them at all now. So having a Devon Villay pop up is really nice. Everyone at the top of the segment saw me all of a sudden pivot, being worried I was going to steal Joey's, because I also was going to highlight these young receivers. I think that stood out as like the only glaring up from this game was, Devon Villay had a great day. Troy Franklin, catching his first touchdown pass. He also had some nice plays in this game. And then Marvin Mims with his snap count, with his usage and a target share and whatnot, looks like he's maybe worked his way out of Sean Payton's doghouse. Maybe that's just a product of the Josh Reynolds injury. But hopefully he's able to do enough over these next, 2, 3, 4 weeks, however long Reynolds is on IR for, where he can continue to earn more snaps, because they need to get more out of him there, more out of Franklin, more out of Villay. Again, just like you kind of outlined. This was a nice glimpse of that, of them getting a little more out of those guys. So yeah, hopefully they can continue to build on that.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely something that they need to have this year. Someone that can even create anything would be amazing. Let's move into the downs. What do you have for the downs, Zach, other than Bo Nix, please?
You're not to type on this new setup. Sorry, everybody, for that. Bo Nix and all the passing offense and all that, covered that. I'd just say the discourse in Broncos country. I'll go with that route to kind of maybe save us from going too negative here, because overall. And I think we had to talk about what we talked about at the front of the show, the way we talked about it. But overall, I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic with this team. This is a rebuilding team that was expected to go 5-12 this year, and they're sitting at 3-3. Frankly, they're expected to go worse than 5-12, probably because Vegas over-under lines are always going to fall towards the middle. That Chiefs line is at 11 wins every year. And we're all thinking, they could go 13-14, and that's them just safety guarding against something going horribly wrong. Same thing's happening on the extreme bottom of the spectrum, where they're like the lowest they'll project is 4.5 wins. But, teams win 2-3 games every year. Broncos were at the bottom of the league in those projected win totals. They were expected to be a bottom 3 team this year. As we sit right now, I think it'd be, frankly, surprising, very surprising, if they had one of those top 3 draft picks come April. They're in a good spot right now. What they're getting out of this defense, the way they're winning these games, they haven't lost by more than a single possession so far, and garbage time's helping that out some. But this is the most respectable and competitive the Broncos franchise has been in the post-Kubiak, post-Manning era. And that is meaningful, especially, again, with the quarterback play they're getting. If Nix is able to develop, which, I imagine everyone in Broncos country is hoping for, if he's able to develop, if he's able to become a more functional, stable, consistent quarterback, I'd feel really optimistic with what we're seeing, this coaching staff, this organization put together through 6 games with both their hands tied behind their backs. Next year, they're going to get a huge influx of cap. And then the year after that, they're going to be walking into 2026 free agency with $200 million in cap space or something ludicrous like that. This team can start getting a lot better a whole lot quick, especially if this is what they're able to get out of this talent poor roster. And I just see everybody getting really, really down. Maybe Bo Nix isn't it. And you know what? They'll draft a new guy 2 years from now, and he'll get plugged into a much better infrastructure and have a much better chance at being the guy. And I know Broncos fans are tired of how long this process has taken. They've been bad for so long, and I get the impatience and frustration, and it's all fair. I still think this is close to the brightest the future has looked in this post-Manning chapter. And I don't know, just remembering that perspective and not getting so down on the team. Feel like people have been getting really down on the team. So my stock down the discourse, a little injection of positivity.
I love it. I love it. For the stock down, Zach goes positive. I love it. We needed a little of that. I ultimately agree with you. I think people are all down in the dumps about it. Here's my whole thing. I I totally agree with you on all of that. And even if I tie that into the Bo Nix discourse, the main thing here is you do not have to rush to a conclusion because he's not going anywhere. You're setting yourself up if you're just rushing to a conclusion there, because unless the Broncos fire Sean Payton this offseason, they're not moving off of Bo Nix. He's handcuffed to that guy. And then even if they do fire a Sean Payton, you would have to bank on that next head coach coming in and not using that kind of get out of jail free card for their first year that they would get with a Bo Nix at quarterback. You would have to do all these drastic and very, I just think, uncalculated moves to move off of him immediately. So you're not going anywhere. There's no reason for you to come out there and rush to a conclusion. You might as well just sit, wait, and see it through. See if he does improve and be optimistic about it, because just being so down on it, it's not actually going to do anything. You're just going to have to live through it next year. Like, if I'm being honest with you, there's no way that you should be. Like, you should just be kind of optimistic about it is the way I look at it right now, because he's not going anywhere. Unfortunately, he's not going anywhere. So, yeah.
2 years. Just with how these timelines work out, give it 2 years. It's going to be this year, and we might be in a spot at the end of the season where it's still murky, where it still doesn't look great. And in that position, I think the Broncos should start preparing themselves to maybe make some aggressive moves in 2026 to trade up for their next quarterback. They're going to have a lot of cap space. Maybe it's to make a move for a veteran guy. It's a little scary after how the Russ thing went, but they should have their eyes on 2026 if we're still this uncertain at the end of this year. Nonetheless, just with how this franchise has invested in Peyton, invested in Nix, it's going to be this year, it's going to be next year, and it could be a lot better next year. They're going to have a lot of capital to invest into this offense this off season. Where all the points we're making about both supporting cast and whatnot, a lot of those are going to be upgraded, or at least we're going to have a much better idea of what Bo can be like with a solid receiving core, a solid offensive line. They'll have a whole off season for him to practice, hopefully have the game slow down from some, but also for this coaching staff to go back to the tape and go, okay, we failed to elevate him in these ways. How can we tinker with that? How can we make it better? I think this time next year, honestly, we'll probably have like a 90 to 95% sure idea of what Bo Nix is, barring like some injury.
You'll be almost 100%. You'll be like 100% sure.
Totally. Pretty dang close. Exactly.
And Frankie comes in, he says, I think it's pretty hard to not at least be a little concerned a third of the way through the season. And yeah, I mean, hey, I'm definitely not saying that anybody shouldn't just be taking in this information and coming up with their own opinion on what's happening on the field. I'm just saying that, and this is just to Broncos country generally, and this was my main point, was just like, hey, if you're already out, you're just going to be screaming at the sky for another year. So you might as well just wait and see. Don't rush to a conclusion, or you're going to be miserable. Like that, it's just like, hey, here's a little emotional advice for everybody. And it still could very well work out. Like, I think having a feeling now is fine. Just don't run to a conclusion. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. But be willing to like hear criticism. I don't know. Some of it just drives me crazy. Like, I have a comment in here like, oh my God, we're already talking about next year. We're talking about next year in the context of wait till next year. Give it some time. Like, I get it. The Lynch stuff, the lock stuff, the quarterback carousel this team has been on. I get why this fan base is so like, oh my God, please don't tell me the quarterback thing might be going wrong. And I get why there's that sensitivity there. But it's so ridiculous that any allusion to any element of this quarterback situation, even though I feel fine about Nix. I think there's plenty of reason to be concerned. There's some things I'm optimistic about, and I hope he keeps progressing on and developing and growing. But I feel like every time I mention the guy's name, I have to talk about it with kid gloves because I'm like, oh my God, I don't want anyone to think I'm saying he's a bust and he's all done. No one's saying that. We're just talking about, like, let's just take it as it comes to us. That's all it is. That's all it is.
I said this on another podcast. We're talking about him through his first 6 weeks of his NFL career. I'm never really talking about am I in or out yet. And when I do that, you're going to hear me say I'm completely out or I'm completely in. We're recapping the last 6 weeks of his performance. That's what we're doing here when we're talking about it. And a lot of the time we're just even talking about this last week in general. Like that's all we're talking about. It's that game. It's not his entire career and how it's going to unfold. But yeah, I think that's – I don't have any other downs. I don't want to get into it. The episode was very much how can the Denver Broncos fix their offense. Zach and I had a really fun debate at the beginning of the episode. If you guys didn't see it, about who was at fault more. Was it the quarterback? Was it all the weapons? Was it a mix of both? I highly recommend all of you guys to go rewind that. I saw some people talking about the draft stuff. I'm all in on that. I've been watching a ton of college film, as I always do this time of year. I love it. So, yeah, make sure you're following me for that. I'm going to be posting a ton more stuff. Zach, what's up?
Give me an early just for the people. And I know this is an imperfect science, especially because we don't know where the Broncos are picking, but 3-3 team, let's say they kind of fall in that bucket, 8, 9, somewhere between 7 and 10 and 10 and 7. Where they end up falling. Give me an early idea of like 3 names you've got an eye on for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, dude.
Somewhere in that middle of the first round.
I don't have that list ready for you, brother. But I will say if you guys like
names to you then.
Here's what I am gonna say. I'll say this. I was very heavy on the Broncos needed to take an offensive tackle this next year. Garrett Bowles obviously on his last year of his deal year. If you've listened to Mario on his show, you have some information about how that situation goes on altitude adjustment. Make sure you guys are listening to that. I don't know. I think you kind of missed your chance at drafting your tackle this last year. If you were going to do it either this last year or this year, you would have done it this last year. Banks, who is the big tackle from Texas, and then Campbell, who is the tackle from LSU, already getting a ton of talk at are these guys college or NFL guards, not tackles. And those are your top 2 tackles in the class, already up there. And it's leaning more towards maybe these guys are interior guys instead of tackles. I don't think this is a great tackle class. I'm big on just taking the where things are the strongest in the draft. That's what they should have been doing for a while now. You look at where it's the strongest and you draft from that pool. Guys are going to fall where it's the strongest. So then this is next year. It's going to be running back, tight end, some of those type of positions that Zach's going to scream over. So trade back is what Zach would say. It's not a very top 10 friendly draft class, in my opinion. It's more of a, hey, there's a lot of good second round and end of the first type players draft class. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
And if I want to cope a bit, it might work out pretty well for a Broncos team that wants to stack future capital. If they're in a spot where, and also just this roster needs an infusion of young talent, of quality young contracts. There's a lot of reasons why, hey, maybe they should trade down. And if this is a class that aligns with that, just financial reasons why maybe they should trade down and want to, or just their timeline, eye on quarterback position in the future. If things continue to look shaky with Nix, just having those protections in place, there might be a lot of reasons to want to trade down in 2026. So, hey, it's kind of nice to hear that the class might align with that. Luther Burden, no matter what, let's go get some yak on this team.
All right, there you go. Luther Burden it is. I also watch a Penn State tight end. If you guys haven't seen him, he's a freak yak guy, like crazier than even Brock Bowers is a yak guy, like substantially, but this guy's insane. Just specifically as a yak guy. I'm not saying as a tight end, but as a yak tight end. But that's all I think we have for today's show. Thank you everyone for listening. Per usual, I love all of you in the chat. None of this, I would not be on here with Zach as much as I am if it weren't for you. I'm just kidding. I literally hang out with this guy all the time. But make sure you're following Zach at Zach_Seegers. Make sure you're following me at LTB_Joey. And until next time, go Broncos.
Go Broncos.